The Galactic Council was the most powerful organization in the known universe. It was made up of the oldest and strongest alien civilizations, ruling over hundreds of planets. They believed they knew everything. They believed no new power could rise without their permission. One day, a strange message was received from deep space. It was not in any known alien language. The translation systems worked hard to decode it. Finally, the message became clear. They are coming. You must prepare. If you do not, they will bring war. The council members laughed. Who would dare to threaten them? They ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. No single race had ever challenged their authority. They ignored the message and continued with their usual politics. But the warnings did not stop. More signals came, each one more urgent than before. Some spoke of a great battle that had already happened in the dark corners of space. Others described a new species, one that fought without fear, one that refused to surrender. The messages all warned of the same thing. The humans are coming. The council still did not listen. A few cautious leaders suggested sending scouts to investigate, but the majority refused. They did not believe in ghosts or foolish stories about invincible warriors. The warnings were ignored, and the galaxy continued as it always had. Then, something strange happened. A small exploration ship from the Selvari Empire was patrolling the edge of known space when it received a distress signal. The crew followed the signal and found themselves in a dead sector of the galaxy, an empty, silent graveyard of war. Giant warships, completely destroyed, floated through space like dead beasts. The remains of entire fleets drifted without life. The Selvari captain scanned the ships and gasped. These were not weak pirate vessels. They were warships from the strongest empires in the galaxy, burned, broken, and abandoned. Something had destroyed them, and it had done so without mercy. The captain sent a report back to the council. He described the battlefield, the destruction, and the overwhelming feeling of doom that hung over the wreckage. The response from the council was simple. Do not spread fear. There is no threat. Return to your post. The warnings had been ignored. And now, something was coming. For months, the galaxy remained silent. The warnings had stopped. No more strange messages came. No more distress signals were detected. The council believed they had been right. There was no danger, no enemy, no war. Then the first ship arrived. It came from the darkness beyond known space, a massive warship unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. It did not announce itself. It did not ask for permission to enter Galactic Council territory. It simply appeared, moving with the silent confidence of a predator. The warship was black, its surface smooth and without markings. It was larger than the Council's greatest battleships, yet it moved with deadly precision. Sensors from nearby outposts tried to scan it, but their systems failed. It was as if the ship refused to be seen. Panic spread quickly. The Council's military leaders were called into emergency meetings. Some demanded immediate action. Attack the intruder before it could strike. Others urged caution, suggesting diplomacy first. But before they could agree on a plan, the warship made its first move. A single message was broadcast across every communication channel in the sector. This is the UNS Vengeance. You were warned. Now, we are here. The name meant nothing to the aliens, but the tone of the message sent chills through their spines. It was not a greeting. It was not a request. It was a statement of fact. The humans had arrived. The nearest fleet, belonging to the proud and warlike Krivik Empire, took action immediately. They had ruled their part of the galaxy for centuries through strength and fear. No single warship would be allowed to challenge them. The Krivik commander ordered his fleet to surround the human warship. Hundreds of ships moved into attack formation. Weapons were powered up, targeting systems locked onto the unknown enemy. The commander sent his own message, his voice filled with arrogance. This is Krivik territory. Identify yourself or be destroyed. There was silence. Then the human warship moved. Without warning, a beam of light shot from the UNS Vengeance. It was not a missile. It was not a laser. It was something different, something terrifying. The lead Kryvek battleship, one of the strongest in the fleet, was cut in half instantly. No explosion, no fire, just silence as the two halves drifted apart, lifeless. Panic filled the Kryvek fleet. Their commander shouted orders, but it was too late. The UNS Vengeance fired again, and another ship was erased from existence. The humans did not need words. Their message was clear. They had come for war. Panic spread through the Kryvek fleet like wildfire. Their strongest warships were being destroyed with terrifying ease. They had fought many battles before, but never had they seen a weapon like this. The humans were not just attacking. They were erasing them from existence. The Kryvek commander, still in shock, shouted new orders. All ships, fire at will. Destroy that thing. Hundreds of energy cannons, missile launchers, and plasma turrets locked onto the UNS Vengeance. A storm of firepower filled space, bright explosions lighting up the darkness. The Kryvek fleet poured everything they had into a single point, determined to bring the human warship down. And then, the impossible happened. The blasts hit, but did nothing. The human warship remained untouched, its dark hull absorbing the attacks like they were nothing. The Kryvek weapons, which had crushed entire planets before, were useless. The silence that followed was worse than the battle itself. Then, the UNS Vengeance responded. A low hum echoed across all frequencies. It was not a voice, not a message, just a deep, vibrating sound that sent chills through every Kryvek soldier. Before they could react, the human ship attacked again. This time, it did not fire a single beam. It unleashed a storm. Bright white streaks of energy tore through the Kryvek fleet, each shot finding its target with perfect precision. Ships that had ruled space for centuries were turned into floating debris in seconds. Fighters tried to escape, but the human warship was too fast, too powerful. The Kryvek commander watched in horror as his mighty fleet was reduced to nothing. His hands trembled as he reached for the emergency communicator. His voice, once filled with arrogance, was now filled with fear. "This is Commander Xalvor of the Kryvek Empire. We surrender. I repeat, we surrender." For the first time in their history, the Kryvek begged for mercy. The human warship stopped its attack. The silence returned, heavy and cold. Then, the UNS Vengeance sent a final message, calm and direct. "You ignored the warnings. Surrender is not an option." The last thing Commander Xalvor saw was a blinding white light. Then, the Kryvek fleet was gone. The destruction of the Kryvek fleet sent shockwaves across the galaxy. The news spread faster than light. An entire battle fleet, wiped out in minutes. The Kryvek Empire, once feared by many, had been humbled. The Galactic Council held an emergency meeting. The High Chancellor, an ancient Yalvian with 6 glowing eyes, slammed a fist on the table. "Who are these humans? Where did they come from? Asterisk, 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 asterisk. How did one ship destroy an entire fleet?" No one had answers. The council had ignored the warnings, and now they were blind to the danger they faced. The surviving Kryvek, those who had escaped before the final blast, told horrifying stories. "They are unstoppable," they said. "Their weapons defy logic. Our shields were useless. Our weapons were useless. We never stood a chance." Panic grew among the council members. Some demanded war, calling for every fleet in the galaxy to unite and destroy the human threat. Others urged caution. "We don't know their true power," they warned. "If one ship can do this, what happens if more arrive?" Meanwhile, the UNS Vengeance did not stop. It moved deeper into council space, undeterred by border defenses. Every outpost it encountered sent distress signals, then fell silent. Some planets tried to communicate, offering peace, trade, even surrender. The human warship gave no response. It had one mission, and it was not here to negotiate. On the planet Veltorin, A major Galactic Council stronghold, the defense fleet stood ready. Thousands of soldiers prepared for battle. Their leaders told them this would be different. "We have studied their attacks," they said. "We will not make the same mistakes as the Krivak." The UNS Vengeance arrived in orbit. The soldiers on the ground looked up at the sky and saw the massive shadow of the warship blocking out the stars. The planet's leader, Governor Relzek, sent a final transmission. "We do not wish for war. Please, speak to us." For the first time, the UNS Vengeance responded. A voice, deep and calm, echoed through every communication channel. "Your leaders ignored the warnings. Your people will pay the price." Then the attack began. The skies above Veltorin erupted in chaos. The UNS Vengeance unleashed its full power, firing beams of white-hot energy that sliced through the planetary defenses like paper. Massive explosions lit up the night as shield generators collapsed and orbital stations were torn apart. The Galactic Council had promised that Veltorin would not fall easily. They had stationed an elite fleet in orbit, thousands of ships strong. But just like the Krivak before them, they were hopelessly outmatched. Their weapons barely scratched the human warship's hull. Their advanced tactics, perfected over centuries, meant nothing against an enemy that fought with terrifying precision. On the ground, the citizens of Veltorin watched in horror as fire rained from the sky. Entire cities were engulfed in explosions as the human warship targeted military installations, command centers, and power grids. The once thriving world was turning into a battlefield. Governor Relzek, standing in the council tower, clenched his trembling hands into fists. "We must surrender," he whispered. His advisors, panicked and desperate, argued. "The humans do not accept surrender." One of them cried, "We have no choice but to fight." But fight with what? Their strongest ships were already burning in orbit. Their planetary defenses had been wiped out. Even their emergency distress calls were being jammed. Then something terrifying happened. The UNS Vengeance deployed something new. Not just weapons, but soldiers. Metal pods, sleek and black, rained down from the warship, crashing into the planet's surface. From them emerged human warriors, tall, armored figures with glowing visors and weapons unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. They moved like shadows, fast and merciless. Any resistance was crushed instantly. Alien soldiers, trained for centuries of war, found themselves unable to react in time. The humans fought with perfect coordination, their weapons cutting through armor and flesh alike. Governor Relzek, now trapped in his tower, watched the live feeds with shaking hands. His finest warriors, his last defense, were falling. The humans showed no hesitation, no fear. They moved with one purpose. This was not a battle. This was an execution. Desperate, the governor activated one last emergency transmission. He broadcast his final words across every frequency, hoping someone, anyone, would hear. "We were wrong. We should have listened. The humans are not invaders. They are executioners." As his message echoed through the stars, the doors behind him burst open. A human soldier stepped forward, his weapon raised. The governor closed his eyes, and Veltorin fell silent. The fall of Veltorin sent a wave of terror through the Galactic Council. A major stronghold, home to billions, had been wiped out in mere hours. The once powerful council now faced an enemy unlike any before. News of the destruction spread faster than light. Planets across the galaxy fell into chaos. Some governments declared martial law, fearing they were next. Others tried to contact the humans, begging for peace, but there was no response. The UNS Vengeance moved through space like a silent storm, unstoppable and unchallenged. The council gathered once more in their great hall, but this time there was no arrogance, only fear. A high chancellor, his once confident voice now shaking, spoke. "We cannot fight them. Our weapons do nothing. Our fleets are useless." "Then what do we do?" Another counselor asked. "Surrender." Silence filled the room. No one wanted to say it, but they all knew the truth. If the humans did not accept surrender, then what hope was there? Then, a new voice spoke. A hooded figure stepped forward. An old, forgotten scholar named Kellerin. He had spent his life studying ancient records, warnings written long before the Council's rule. The others had always ignored him, but now, in their desperation, they listened. "This has happened before," Kellerin whispered. "Long ago, there was another war. A war against the humans." The Council members froze. Kellerin continued. "The ancient records spoke of a race that did not bow, did not break, a race that fought until the last breath. The Council at that time tried to erase them, to wipe them from history." He looked around the room, his glowing eyes filled with sorrow. But the humans survived. And now, they have returned. The High Chancellor's voice was barely a whisper. "What do they want?" Kellerin's expression darkened. "Vengeance." At that moment, a new transmission was received. The UNS Vengeance had stopped in open space, broadcasting a single message across the galaxy. The warnings were ignored. Now, the punishment begins. And then, one by one, the stars began to go dark. Across the galaxy, planets fell into panic as the meaning of the human transmission became clear. The punishment begins. Those words echoed in every corner of the known universe. Governments collapsed, leaders fled, and entire civilizations braced for the unstoppable force that was coming. The UNS Vengeance had not moved since its last message. It remained in the void, waiting, watching. And then, without warning, it struck. One by one, key planets of the Galactic Council began to disappear. Not conquered, not occupied, erased. Entire worlds, home to billions, were wiped from existence with the same terrifying white energy that had destroyed the Krivik fleet. It was not random. The humans knew exactly where to strike. The capitals, the military headquarters, the heart of the Council's power. The Council's greatest warlords gathered their fleets for a last stand. "We cannot run," they declared. "We will fight, even if it is hopeless." And so, the largest fleet in history was assembled, a desperate attempt to stop the inevitable. Thousands of warships, armed with every weapon known to the galaxy, surrounded the Council's capital world. If they could not stop the humans here, then there would be nothing left to save. The UNS Vengeance arrived. It did not slow down. It did not hesitate. The final battle was over before it truly began. The Great Fleet, the last hope of the Galactic Council, was torn apart in minutes. Their strongest ships were reduced to dust, their greatest warriors silenced before they could fire a single shot. The capital world itself, a shining jewel of civilization for thousands of years, burned under the unstoppable power of the human warship. As the last council leader watched the destruction from his escape pod, he whispered, "We should have listened." And then there was silence. The Galactic Council was no more. Epilogue. The New Order. For the first time in history, the galaxy belonged to one species. There were no rulers left to challenge them, no armies left to oppose them. The warnings had been ignored, and the price had been paid. But the humans did not claim the galaxy for themselves. They did not send diplomats or demand tribute. They simply disappeared. The UNS Vengeance left as mysteriously as it had arrived, fading into the darkness beyond known space. No one knew where it went. No one knew if it would return. But the lesson remained. The next time a warning is given, the galaxy will listen.